Hey Reddit, I never thought I'd be airing my dirty laundry here, but I need to get this off my chest. Maybe someone else has gone through something similar. So let me set the scene. My name's Jack, I'm 37, and I thought I had a pretty good life. Married for 10 years to my wife, Sarah, who's 35. We have an 8-year-old son, Ethan, who's the center of my world. Like any marriage, we had our ups and downs, but I genuinely believed we were happy. Sarah worked part-time at a boutique, which gave her plenty of free afternoons. I work in IT, so my days are long and monotonous. I figured our arrangement worked. She had her space, I had mine, and Ethan had a stable home. At least that's what I thought. The story begins on a random Tuesday. Nothing special about that day, until I got a phone call that turned my entire world upside down. It was Ethan. He was whispering, almost scared, as if he thought he'd get in trouble just for talking to me. I could hear his little voice trembling as he said, "Dad, Mom's with someone. I saw them." My heart stopped. I tried to keep my voice calm, not wanting to scare him. "What do you mean, buddy? Where are you?" He was at a park not far from our house. I dropped him off there earlier because Sarah had insisted she'd pick him up after running errands. Apparently, instead of going home, she decided the park was a good meeting spot for her friend. "Take some pictures if you can, Ethan," I told him. He hesitated, and I hated myself for involving him in this, but I needed proof. "It's okay, son. Just stay hidden and come home after." I hung up and sat at my desk, frozen. My hands were shaking, and my mind raced. Was this a misunderstanding? Was my 8-year-old wrong about what he saw? I tried to convince myself that Ethan was mistaken, but deep down I already knew. The text came 5 minutes later. A photo. Ethan had taken it from behind some bushes, but the image was crystal clear. There was Sarah, sitting on a bench, leaning in close to a man I didn't recognize. Their faces were inches apart, laughing, oblivious to the fact that our son was watching from just a few feet away. That photo sent my world crashing down. I couldn't focus for the rest of the day. My brain was a storm of emotions. Anger, disbelief, sadness. But one thing was clear. I needed more information before confronting her. Ethan came home that evening, quiet and confused. I hugged him tightly, trying to reassure him even though I felt completely shattered inside. "You did the right thing, buddy," I told him. He nodded but didn't say much. I could tell he didn't fully understand what was happening, and I hated that he had to see any of this. That night, Sarah came home like nothing was wrong. She kissed Ethan on the forehead, smiled at me, and casually asked about my day. I felt like I was in a movie, watching this woman, my wife, act as though everything was fine when I knew she'd been with another man just hours earlier. I decided to wait. I needed more than a single photo to confirm what I was starting to believe. Over the next few days, I played the part of the oblivious husband, but my eyes were open now. I noticed little things I'd ignored before. The sudden text she'd smile at and put away quickly. The excuses about running errands that took way too long. The perfume she started wearing that she hadn't used in years. The following week, I installed a small GPS tracker in her car. I know it sounds extreme, but I needed the truth. And sure enough, just 2 days later, the tracker pinged at a location I didn't recognize. A secluded spot on the edge of town. My stomach dropped. I left work early and drove there, parking a few streets away. My heart was pounding as I approached on foot. And there they were, Sarah and the same man from the photo sitting in his car. I didn't need to get closer to know what was happening. I took several photos and then left, my hands shaking as I drove home. I wasn't angry anymore. I was numb. That night, I asked Ethan if he remembered the man he'd seen with Sarah. He nodded. "Yeah, Dad." He hugged her before they left. My chest tightened, but I stayed calm. "Ethan, if you ever see them again, tell me right away, okay?" He agreed, and I hugged him, silently thanking him for being braver than any child his age should have to be. A week later, it happened again. Ethan called me from his friend's phone this time, his voice more urgent. "Dad, they're back at the park." I dropped everything and rushed there. Sure enough, Sarah and her lover were sitting on the same bench, completely unaware of the world around them, or the fact that Ethan was nearby, watching again. This time, I didn't just take photos. I recorded a short video. It was enough, more than enough. When I got home that evening, I told Sarah I needed to talk to her. She looked concerned but followed me to the living room. "What's going on, Jack?" she asked, feigning innocence. I pulled up the photos on my phone and handed it to her. Her face went pale as she swiped through the images, her hands starting to shake. "Care to explain?" I said, my voice cold and steady. She stammered, trying to deny it at first, but the evidence was undeniable. "It's not what it looks like," she started, but I cut her off. "Don't insult me, Sarah. Don't insult Ethan. He saw you." Her mouth fell open, and for the first time, I saw fear in her eyes. "You dragged our son into this, Sarah," I said, my voice rising. "You humiliated all of us." Sarah broke down, trying to spin her actions as a moment of weakness or a mistake, but I wasn't buying it. She begged me not to overreact, claiming she never intended for things to go this far. The words felt hollow, especially considering how many times she had to not go this far. "I don't want to hear it, Sarah," I said. "You didn't just betray me, you betrayed Ethan. He saw everything. Do you have any idea what you've done to him?" She froze, her tears stopping for a moment as she realized the weight of her actions. "Ethan saw us?" she whispered. "Yes, Sarah. Twice. And he told me because he didn't know what else to do." I let the words sink in before adding, "He even took photos when I asked him to. I have all of it." She collapsed into the chair, her head in her hands, muttering apologies I didn't care to hear. But I wasn't done. The next day I met with a divorce lawyer. Armed with the photos, video, and even Ethan's testimony, though I hated having to involve him in this way, we prepared a case that would leave no doubt about Sarah's infidelity. Fast forward to the day of the court hearing. Sarah was confident, even smug, walking in. Her lawyer had assured her that the divorce proceedings would be routine. She'd likely get partial custody of Ethan, and we'd split assets equally. What she didn't know was that I had one last card to play. When the judge asked why I was requesting full custody of Ethan, I presented the evidence. The photos, the video, even the GPS tracker logs, all laid out meticulously. Sarah's face turned red, then pale, as the courtroom buzzed with murmurs. But the real bombshell came when Ethan's statement was read aloud. I'll never forget the look on Sarah's face as the judge read my son's simple, honest words. "I saw Mom hugging and kissing another man. She told me not to tell Dad. But I had to because it didn't feel right." The courtroom went silent. Sarah tried to protest, but the damage was done. Her lawyer scrambled to regain control, but there was no coming back from this. The judge ruled in my favor. I was granted full custody of Ethan, while Sarah's visitation was limited and supervised. Even the division of assets skewed in my favor, as the court deemed her actions a direct betrayal of the marital agreement. After the hearing, Sarah approached me in the hallway, tears streaming down her face. "Jack, please don't do this. Don't take Ethan away from me." I looked at her, feeling nothing but pity. "You did this to yourself, Sarah. Was it worth risking your family for a forbidden love?" She had no answer, just a broken expression as she watched me walk away with Ethan. It's been 6 months now. Ethan is doing better, he's in therapy, and I've done my best to shield him from the fallout. As for Sarah, she tried to reconcile with Ethan, but he's still angry and confused about what she did. She's lost the respect of her son, her husband, and even some of her friends. I've moved on, focusing on being the best father I can be. But every now and then, I catch myself thinking about that moment in the courtroom. The moment Sarah realized the life she'd built was gone, all because of her choices. So, to anyone reading this who's even considering stepping outside their marriage, ask yourself this. Is it worth it? Because trust me, once it's gone, there's no getting it back.